For over a decade, Kody Brown played a cruel, calculated game of emotional keepaway with his first wife, Meri. He went on national television and boldly declared to the world that he didn't consider himself married to her anymore, acting as though she was merely an annoying acquaintance rather than the woman who helped build his entire family. He strung her along with absolute arrogance, fully expecting her to just wait in the background forever. To him, she was nothing more than a loyal ATM, silently funding the family's endless chaotic moves and Robyn's precious knick-knack collection, all while gratefully accepting whatever pathetic emotional breadcrumbs he decided to toss her way. It was the ultimate self-own. Kody actually believed that by starving Meri of affection, he was cementing his own absolute power. He thought he had broken her down so completely that she would never dare to look elsewhere or realize her own worth. But the joke is entirely on Kody. The shocking news of Meri's new life partner has just dropped, and it has left Kody absolutely speechless, exposing the fragile ego of a man who never realized what he had until another man proudly claimed it. If you are just as obsessed with the latest Sister Wives drama as we are, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the SW Daily right now so you never miss an update on this explosive story. To really understand the absolute shockwave this new romance has sent through the Brown family dynamic, we have to look back at the trap Kody thought he had so brilliantly set for Meri. For years, Kody officially and publicly pushed her away. We all watched in horror as he told her on their anniversary that he didn't even want her to call him. We watched him tell the cameras that if she wanted to marry another man, he wouldn't stop her. But according to insider reports and exclusive theories from those close to the production, Kody's public dismissal of Meri was never actually about setting her free. It was a twisted psychological trap. He fully expected her to crumble into a sad, lonely spinster who would spend the rest of her days pining for him, regretting losing him, and begging for a second chance that he would forever dangle just out of reach. He built his entire massive ego on the deeply narcissistic assumption that no one else would ever want her. He looked at her age, her past controversies, and the sheer weight of the Sister Wives baggage, and he calculated that she was stuck with him, even if he gave her absolutely nothing in return. According to these exclusive insider leaks, Kody used to confidently brag off camera that Meri was too emotionally dependent to ever actually pack her bags and leave. He liked having her parked out in the trees of Flagstaff, a perpetual monument to his own desirability. Whenever his ego took a hit from Christine or Janelle, he could always look over at Meri and think, well, at least she is still desperate for my attention. It was a sick power trip, a way for him to feel like the ultimate patriarch without having to actually do any of the work of a husband. But Kody wildly miscalculated who Meri Brown actually is. He forgot that she was the original hustler of this family, the woman who single-handedly pulled in massive incomes while he was busy drawing up useless blueprints for a giant house that would never be built. When Meri finally decided to officially pull the plug on her agonizingly dead marriage to Kody, something incredible happened. She didn't just quietly fade into the background as Kody had planned. Instead, she re-entered the dating scene and absolutely leveled up in every conceivable way. This created the ultimate credibility dilemma for Kody, a double bind that has reportedly been tearing him apart behind closed doors. Now that Meri is out in the world, glowing, traveling, and living her best life, Kody is forced into a corner. He has to pretend he doesn't care. For years, he told the world he didn't care, so he has to keep up that charade. But his fragile, mirror-obsessed ego simply cannot handle the idea of a discarded wife finding genuine happiness without him. According to reports from crew members, Kody's reaction to Meri's post-split glow-up has been completely erratic. ecstatic. If he acts jealous, he looks utterly pathetic and hypocritical, considering he essentially told her to leave. But if he ignores it entirely, he looks completely irrelevant to her life, which might actually be Kody's biggest fear of all. He cannot stand the thought of not being the center of the universe for the women who once worshipped him. Insider theories suggest that Kody has been obsessively monitoring Meri's social media, furiously dissecting her Friday with Friends broadcasts, and desperately trying to find signs that she is secretly miserable. But there are no signs of misery to be found. Instead, there is only a woman who looks 10 years younger, surrounded by a fierce inner circle of supportive friends who actually value her presence. This leads directly into the escalating stakes of Meri's complete reinvention. This isn't just about her casually dipping a toe into the dating pool. This is a total lifestyle overhaul that has massive financial and professional implications, leaving Kody looking absolutely foolish. Meri has completely reinvented herself. She is wealthy, independent, and glowing with the kind of confidence that only comes from dropping hundreds of pounds of dead patriarchal weight. Her glow up has become a viral sensation across social media. Fans who used to pity her or scream at their televisions begging her to leave are now cheering her on as the ultimate comeback queen. This massive wave of positive public relations has entirely shifted to Meri, leaving Kody and Robyn drowning in a sea of public backlash. Kody is now widely viewed as the villain, the anchor that was holding her back from her true potential. And the financial shift is where the exclusive rumors get truly fascinating. According to insider reports, once Meri fully detached from the family pot, the financial strain on Kody and Robyn became catastrophic. Meri was allegedly a massive contributor to the Coyote Pass property taxes and the overall lifestyle maintenance of Robyn's cluttered mansion. Without Meri's LuLaRoe empire and her bed and breakfast income being quietly siphoned off to support Kody's dreams, reality came crashing down. There are exclusive theories floating around the Sister Wives universe that Kody actually attempted to reach out to Meri under the guise of an amicable business discussion, hoping to secure some sort of loan or investment for a new venture, only to be met with a cold, hard rejection. Meri's money is now officially Meri's money, and she is spending it on herself, her business, and her new life. But the money and the glow up were just the warm-up act for the absolute knockout blow that was about to hit Kody Brown squarely in the jaw. The concrete example of his total failure as a husband arrived in the form of a bombshell announcement that shook the fandom to its core. Rumblings began to surface, backed by exclusive insider reports, that Meri had not just found a casual date, but a serious, committed new life partner named Frank. Frank represents everything Kody is not, and everything Kody never could be. According to these reports, Frank is financially secure, completely independent of reality television drama, and above all, fiercely attentive to Meri. He is respectful, softly spoken, and fully devoted only to her. There is no splitting his time between four houses. There are no favorite wives to compete with. There are no massive, convoluted family meetings to determine who gets a fraction of his attention this week. Frank is reportedly a man who treats Meri like the only woman in the room, holding her hand in public, taking her on romantic vacations that don't involve lugging a dozen unhappy children in an RV, and actively listening to her without interrupting to talk about his own grievances. The sheer existence of a man like Frank is a direct threat to Kody's entire worldview. But what makes this situation completely devastating for Kody is how he found out about it. He didn't get a respectful phone call from Meri. He didn't get to sit down at a stupid folding table in the middle of a desert plot to discuss her moving on. According to exclusive insider theories, Kody found out about Frank from the internet. He found out from the same gossip sites and fan pages that the rest of the world reads. This detail is absolutely crucial because it completely stripped Kody of any remaining insider control. For a man who built an entire television show around his ability to control the narrative of his massive family, being relegated to the status of an outsider reading about his ex-wife's new romance on social media is the ultimate humiliation. He has been entirely locked out of her life. This absolute loss of control brings us straight to the most glaring behavioral flaw in Kody's entire psychological makeup, a flaw that this new romance has exposed for the whole world to see: his deeply ingrained narcissistic possessiveness. It is a fascinating and disturbing character study of a man who firmly believed he owned the women in his life, long after he stopped treating them like wives. For a decade, Kody made it painfully, explicitly clear that he did not want to be a husband to Meri. He withheld physical intimacy, he withheld emotional support, and he openly mocked her desperate attempts to repair their shattered bond in those agonizing therapy sessions. He essentially treated her like a squatter on his family property. Yet, the moment the reality set in that another man had actually stepped up to take his place, Kody was reportedly infuriated. According to exclusive insider theories and whispers from sources close to the family, Kody's reaction behind the closed doors of his and Robyn's Flagstaff mansion was nothing short of a massive ego-driven meltdown. It is the classic dog in the manger complex. He didn't want to play with the toy, but the second someone else picked it up, he threw a tantrum. Reports suggest that Kody could not stop talking about Frank, obsessing over who this guy was, what he did for a living, and how he managed to sweep Meri off her feet so quickly. There are even wild rumors circulating in the deeper corners of the fandom that Kody tried to get members of his inner circle to dig up dirt on Frank, desperately hoping to find some fatal flaw or dark secret that he could use to prove that Meri was making a huge mistake. He needed Frank to be a villain so that Kody could still feel like the superior man. But the harder he allegedly looked, the more he realized that Frank was just a genuinely good, normal guy who wanted to treat Meri with the respect she had been denied for over 30 years. Frank doesn't care about the muddy history of Coyote Pass. He doesn't care about the family scapegoating, and he certainly doesn't care about Kody Brown's bruised ego. He just cares about Meri. And for a narcissist like Kody, being replaced by someone so entirely unbothered and drama-free is the ultimate psychological injury. He wanted to be the one who ruined her for anyone else, and instead, he was just the dark cloud she finally stepped out from under. Knowing that he had to address the elephant in the room for the cameras, Kody attempted what can only be described as a spectacularly failed emotional appeal. When confronted by production about Meri's new life and her new man, Kody tried his absolute hardest to act aloof and unbothered. According to leaks from the production crew, it took multiple takes for Kody to get through his interview segments without his face twisting into visible, bitter rage. He adopted this Zen-like persona, dropping subtle, passive-aggressive remarks disguised as concern. He would allegedly tell the cameras that he wishes her well, but he quickly followed it up with condescending warnings, suggesting that she is vulnerable, that he hopes she isn't rushing into anything, and that he prays she isn't being taken advantage of. It was a masterclass in inauthenticity, a desperate attempt attempt to plant seeds of doubt in the audience's mind about the validity of Meri's new happiness. But the audience is far too smart for Kody's manipulative tactics. Viewers saw straight through the indifference to the seething, radioactive jealousy burning underneath every single word he spoke. Whenever he tried to force a smile while talking about Frank, his eyes were dead, and his jaw was clenched so tight it looked like it might shatter. The viewers completely tore him apart online, creating thousands of videos and posts dissecting his micro expressions and highlighting the massive chasm between his words of blessing and his obvious internal panic. He tried to play the role of the benevolent, supportive ex-husband, but he only succeeded in making himself look incredibly small and bitter. Every time he dropped a "but" at the end of a well wish, it was a glaring neon sign pointing to his own insecurity. He wanted the audience to believe that he had gracefully let her go, but his absolute inability to just say, "I am happy for her," without adding a toxic qualifier proved that he is still deeply, furiously tethered to the idea that Meri belongs in his shadow. This entire situation highlights the grand, overarching thematic hypocrisy of Kody Brown's life, serving as the core moral of this entire reality television saga. Here is a man who spent his entire adult life loudly demanding the right to have 4 wives. He built a platform, a television show, and a public identity on the arrogant premise that he had so much love, so much wisdom, and so much masculine capacity that one woman simply could not contain it all. He paraded his polygamous lifestyle around as if it made him a superior breed of husband. He demanded absolute loyalty from 4 different women, expecting them to share him, to wait for him, and to suppress their own natural jealousies for the sake of his grand patriarchal vision. Yet this very same man is now utterly and completely humiliated by the simple fact that his ex-wife has found immense, overflowing happiness with just one decent, loyal man. The hypocrisy is staggering. Kody could not make Meri happy with a quarter of his attention, but Frank has made her absolutely radiate with just the standard, normal devotion of a monogamous partner. According to exclusive insider theories, this is the exact realization that keeps Kody awake at night. Frank's existence entirely invalidates Kody's entire life philosophy. It proves without a shadow of a doubt that the polygamous structure Kody forced down these women's throats was never about multiplying love. It was only ever about multiplying Kody's ego. Meri doesn't need to share Frank's finances. She doesn't need to check a bizarre rotational schedule to see when Frank might grace her with his presence. She doesn't need to compete with a younger, more manipulative wife for a scrap of validation. She just gets to be loved, full stop. The man who needed a harem to feel like a king has been culturally and emotionally decimated by a regular guy who just knows how to pull out a chair and listen to a woman when she speaks. The contrast is so sharp, it is practically blinding, and it has led to an absolute isolation for Kody that he never saw coming. According to reports from those within the family's orbit, Meri's inner circle, her close friends, and even some of the older Brown children have completely rallied around her new relationship. They see how light she is, how freely she laughs now, and how completely detached she has become from the toxic vortex of Flagstaff. They are celebrating her victory. The fans, who once scrutinized her every move and begged her to find her self-worth, are now fiercely protective of her and her new partner, flooding her social media with support and drowning out any lingering negativity. This massive wave of collective joy for Meri stands in stark, depressing contrast to Kody's current reality. While Meri is out traveling the world with a man who actually likes her, Kody is reportedly left sitting in the cavernous, aggressively beige confines of the Robyn Brown McMansion, staring at the walls and realizing the true cost of his hubris. His longest-standing emotional punching bag, the woman he relied on to absorb his anger and fund his mistakes, has officially walked out of the ring and flat out refuses to play the game anymore. There are exclusive theories floating around that the atmosphere in Kody's home has become incredibly tense as he struggles to process this loss of control. Robyn, who always played the role of the peacemaker while quietly securing her own position as the favorite, is now allegedly bearing the full brunt of Kody's sour mood. With Christine gone, Janelle gone, and now Meri spectacularly moving on and leveling up, Kody has no one left to blame for his misery. He is isolated in a prison of his own making, surrounded by the expensive clutter his wife's money bought, watching through a screen as the woman he threw away lives a life more vibrant and fulfilling than anything he could ever offer her. This brings us to the absolute point of no return for Meri, the ultimate conclusion to a story arc that fans have been waiting years to witness. Meri has finally definitively dropped the heavy, toxic brown baggage for good. For over 30 years, her entire identity was wrapped up in being Kody's first wife. She was the one who introduced him to the lifestyle, the one who helped bring the other wives into the family, and the one who absorbed the most brutal emotional blows when the entire structure began to collapse. She wore the ring, she fought for the wet bar, she endured the catfishing scandal, and she sat through countless agonizing therapy sessions trying to rebuild a bridge that Kody had already burned to ash. But the arrival of Frank marks the absolute end of that era. According to exclusive insider theories, Meri no longer talks about the past. She doesn't dissect old arguments with Kody, and she doesn't obsess over where she stands in the hierarchy of a broken family. She has completely emotionally checked out of the sister wives drama. Frank treats her like an absolute queen. He opens doors for her, he celebrates her business successes without acting threatened by her income, and he looks at her with genuine adoration, something Kody hasn't done since the 1990s. The stark contrast between how Kody treated her and how Frank treats her proves to the world once and for all what many fans have suspected for years. Kody Brown was never the prize. He walked around for decades with his chest puffed out, acting like these women were incredibly lucky to be in his presence, as if his curly hair and frantic energy were God's gift to the polygamist community. He convinced them that his conditional love was the best they could ever hope for. But watching Meri thrive alongside a man who simply respects her exposes the grand illusion of the Brown family patriarch. Kody wasn't a prize to be won. He was a prison to be escaped from. And now that Meri is free, there is absolutely no looking back. The dynamic shift is so profound that it has allegedly thrown the future of the entire Sister Wives franchise into a state of chaotic uncertainty. Reports from production insiders suggest that the showrunners are scrambling to figure out how to frame this new reality. For years, the narrative tension relied on the wives battling for Kody's favor. The drama was built on the inherent inequality of the polygamous structure. But now, with Meri completely detached and actively glowing in a healthy monogamous relationship, that old narrative is dead and buried. You cannot force a storyline about a woman pining for a man who hates her when she is clearly deeply in love with someone who adores her. There are exclusive theories that Kody is terrified of how this will look on camera. He allegedly knows that any scene featuring Meri and Frank will immediately highlight his own failures as a husband. Viewers will inevitably compare Frank's calm, supportive demeanor to Kody's manic, dismissive rants, and Kody will lose that comparison every single time. According to these insider leaks, Kody has even tried to push production to limit Meri's screen time or or to focus heavily on her past mistakes, desperate to tarnish her new shiny image. But production knows exactly what the audience wants. The audience wants the comeback story. They want to see the woman who was beaten down for a decade finally rise up and claim her happiness. They want to see the exact moment Kody realizes he is completely powerless over her. This isn't just a win for Meri, it is a total narrative defeat for Kody Brown. He spent years trying to control the script, trying to make himself look like the long-suffering victim of his difficult wives. But the script has flipped, and he is now firmly cast as the bitter ex who is choking on his own pride while the woman he discarded rides off into the sunset. As this new chapter unfolds, the ripple effects are being felt throughout the entire fractured Brown family tree. It is not just Kody who is reeling from Meri's reinvention. According to exclusive theories floating around the family's extended network, Meri's new relationship has forced Robyn to face some very uncomfortable truths. For years, Robyn operated under the assumption that she was the ultimate winner of the sister wives game. She got a legal marriage, she got a big house, and she got a full-time husband. She could always look at Meri's sad, isolated existence and feel a sense of superiority, a confirmation that Kody chose her because she was better, more loyal, and more deserving. But now, looking at Meri radiating joy with a wealthy, devoted new partner, Robyn's prize is suddenly looking incredibly rusty. Reports suggest that the dynamic in the Flagstaff McMansion is bleaker than ever. Robyn is allegedly stuck dealing with a husband whose ego is constantly bruised by his ex-wife's successes, a man who is angry, bitter, and financially stressed. Meanwhile, Meri is traveling, laughing, and living out the exact kind of stress-free romance that Robyn always claimed she wanted. There are whispers that Meri's glow-up has caused massive arguments between Kody and Robyn, with Kody lashing out in frustration as he watches his former empire crumble while his ex-wives build literal castles of their own. Meri's absolute refusal to be a victim anymore has shattered the illusion that life without Kody is a tragedy. She has proven that life without Kody is actually just the beginning of the good part. Ultimately, the shocking news of Meri's new life partner, Frank, is more than just a piece of reality TV gossip. It is the ultimate karmic justice. It is the perfect conclusion to a decade-long saga of emotional abuse and manipulation. Kody Brown played a dangerous game, assuming he could treat a woman like garbage forever without any consequences. He bet his entire ego on the belief that he was irreplaceable. But Frank's arrival has proven that Kody is not only replaceable, he is entirely unnecessary. Meri doesn't need him for money, she doesn't need him for television time, and she certainly doesn't need him for love. She has built an empire of her own, surrounded herself with people who actually care about her, and found a partner who treats her with the baseline human decency that Kody could never muster. The image of Kody Brown sitting alone in his cluttered, overpriced house, furiously scrolling through social media to see updates about the woman he threw away, is a powerful testament to the consequences of narcissism. He thought he was locking Meri out in the cold, but he was actually just handing her the keys to her freedom. And as she steps confidently into this bright new future with a man who truly values her, Kody is left with nothing but his own bitter reflections, completely speechless and entirely alone. If you want to keep up with every single twist, turn, and rumor in this explosive sister wives saga, you know exactly what to do. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below telling us what you think about Kody's massive ego hit, and stay tuned right here to the SW Daily for all the latest updates.